Hi everyone, a very warm welcome back to MEC-TEC. As you can see, we're back on the workbench, which is getting increasingly more messy and stuff everywhere. That's what happens when you get involved in a project. Things just get launched, well it does with me anyway, and obviously it just gets more and more of a mess. So I need to have a bit of time to tidy up in a minute to obviously regroup and get all my stuff back together again. But we have been progressing on the engine, as you can see, so let me send you back to past me. We'll carry on from where we left off on the last video and go from there. Let's get some work done. Rightio, just get you caught up on where we are at. I've put the last 3 bolts on the head. That's these 3 small ones here. I believe the torque setting on those is 20 foot-pounds. Yeah, they're tight, put it that way. I can't get a torque wrench in there, so they're as good as they're going to get. I've also put the new Regal specific or Supervan specific temperature sensor in, so it works with the gauge properly, because the Robin one doesn't work, so that's in. And I've just dropped the push rods in with a little bit of lube on the ends, so they're all in there now as well. So the next job now is going to be to get the rocker shaft on, get that all bolted down, and then we'll rotate the engine over a couple of times, make sure that everything's moving as it should and nothing is getting stuck, and then we can carry on with putting on all the other bits and bobs that need to go back on. Good progress, let's carry on. Rightio, also while I've been off camera, I've put the missing exhaust stud back in here, you can just see it there, and I've also put the missing bolt back in the front timing cover here, which I was missing. I've told you about the new temperature sensor and the other bits I've done. Now I've got the rocker shaft here. This is obviously came out of the engine previously and it ran with this fine, so I'm not going to touch any of the settings on it at the moment. Just going to bolt it on. Obviously it did run before, so we shouldn't have any problems with it running again with it. I'm just looking for the engine lube. Where's it gone? Been trying my absolute hardest to keep this workbench tidy while I'm doing this, and it ain't working. Oh, there it is, got it right. So I'm going to put a little dab of this on each one of these top of these push rods, just so it's not dry. Usual thing. There we go. Same on the tops of the valves. I'll put a bit on there too. Won't hurt it, because obviously it's going to be pushing up against them first of all as well. So like that. And this just goes on those 4 studs there. Now at the moment I've actually only got 2 bolts, so I'm going to get this on, get it bolted down with 2, or started bolted down with 2, and then I'll go off camera, find the other bolts, and obviously get that bolted down too. So you've got to try and get this on all 4 at the same time and keep all the rockers level so that they're sitting on top of the push rods properly. Why is that not going on? Come on. There it goes. Right, there we go. A little bit of persuasion. Now I didn't clean this up with degreaser like I did with the rest of it. I actually cleaned it up with WD-40 just so it's got some sort of lubrication still on it. It's not totally dry. I mean, obviously when I put the oil in it, I'll try and get some oil all over it as well, you know. So it's not wanting to go on here particularly easily, I'm not going to lie. Tell from, I don't know if you can see the window, but it is about 10 o'clock at night, so don't want to make too much noise. Right, I'm going to fiddle around with this because I don't know why it's not going on easy. It should just drop on nice and easy, so I don't want to force it. I'm going to fiddle around with this and I'll come back to you when I've got it on there. Right, there we go. The rocker shaft is now on. Took a little bit of persuasion, but it's all on there. And I ended up using the nuts to just suck the last little bit down onto the push rod so that I wouldn't damage anything. And I've rotated the engine round and it all moves freely. Let me just show you so you can see. It all goes around, as you can see. No problem at all. So that is absolutely great. I'm well chuffed for that. no stuck valves, no stuck push rods, no stuck little lifter cam things that run on the top of the camshaft that the push rods sit on. I don't know the technical word for those, but still. So that is absolutely super duper. So I think that is the last bit of the internals of the engine done. Next job I'm going to do, I've just cleaned up the threads on here. Let me just tilt this down so you can see. I've just cleaned up the threads on the water pump there. Those 4 threads, they're all nice and clean now. So I'm going to get the water pump bolted on next, I think. Then that's the water system sealed on the block. Then all I've got to do is put the thermostat housing on the head. Actually, there is actually one other thing I've got to do on the block, on the water side of things. In fact, no, it's not on the water side of things, it's on the oil side of things, and that is the cap that goes on the end of the camshaft over there. Probably can't see it very well, but where my finger is, there should be a cap on the end there, and I've got that to push in. It's like a bit like a freeze plug, but for oil. So I've got to put that in too. But yeah, it's coming along absolutely superb. Well chuffed. Let's carry on. Right, minor change of plan, just briefly. I wasn't happy with the way the side of this block looked, so I've just masked it all up to paint it silver, just so it looks a little bit tidier. Trying to make it look as obviously presentable as we can. So I'm going to get a coat of high temperature silver on this. Hopefully that will tidy this up a bit, because it is covered in scratches. Obviously it's all been cleaned. I've degreased it all, masked it all up. So we're just going to give it a little dust over of silver, and hopefully that will do the trick and make it look top banana. Let's carry on. There we go. As you would have seen, that is that side given a coat of silver. I may go over it with another coat, possibly in the morning, and possibly a coat of the old high temperature lacquer as well, just to dull it down a bit, because otherwise it looks a bit too shiny, if that makes sense. So yeah, that's tidied it up a little bit. Once it's in the engine bay, it should look lovely jubbly with the grey against a grey sump and the grey plates that I've put on it. Should be good. Top banana. Right, that is the other side masked up, ready for the same treatment. As you can see, there is a lot more to mask up on this side, because obviously we've got the oil filter going on there, the fuel pump going on there, the distributor going on there, the oil pressure sensor there. That is a drain bolt for the block, I believe. So there was a fair bit more to mask up and obviously get to being good, but that's all right. So I'm going to give this side the same treatment with the silver paint, and hopefully it will look absolutely superb once it's done. So I'm going to get this done, and then we can carry on putting it back together. Woohoo! Right, as you can see, it is the next day. I've unmasked the engine. That has had 2 coats of silver and a coat of high temperature lacquer as well, and I think that looks pretty alright. I've actually run a wire brush and a drill over all this and shined up all the heads, so that actually looks not too bad now. So I think I'm probably going to leave it like that rather than painting that as well, because otherwise I'll be painting one side of it, which is pointless. So that is really good. There's the other side, same again, 2 coats of silver, 1 coat of lacquer. Unfortunately I did get a few little runs in it here. Not much I can do about that. I'm not going to redo it again. You won't even see it once it's in the van. It's just to keep it looking tidy. So it's what it is, I'm afraid. But there we go. So yeah, I've cleaned all that up now. So I've got a nice where is it gone, nice new oil filter to go on there, a Mal oil filter. Got that to go on there. Obviously it's brand new, so we'll wind that on there in a minute. That'll be that on there. I'm going to give this fuel pump a clean up. This fuel pump works fine, so I'm going to give that a good old clean up with a wire brush, make that look all nice and shiny again. We've got a new gasket for that as well to go on there. That'll be that on. Before I put the water pump on the front, I'm going to put that plug in the back of the engine that I said to you about. Where is it? There. I need to put that plug in there. Got that over here. One there. You put it in, it's a dome shaped thing. You put it in and then you hammer it flat to wedge it in there. I'm going to put a little bit of RTV around it as well, just to make sure it's sealed. And I may change this core plug in the head as well, just while we're here, so I haven't got to worry about it in the future. So yeah, got a few jobs to get carrying on with. It is progressing nicely. Lovely jubbly. Rightio, as you can see there now, we've got the new oil filter on, and I've also given the fuel pump a proper nice clean up. So that is good to go back on there now as well. Now I've got to get the gasket out of the kit for that. That cam just goes inside the hole there. and basically you just bolt it up with those 2 bolts and it sits there like that. So I'm going to get that put on, and then we'll move on to probably those core plugs at the back. Let's carry on. Rightio, I've got the 2 studs in the holes for the fuel pump. They come off the other block because I didn't have any in this one, so that is good. I've also got a spacer and 2 gaskets. So you can see I've got one little grey gasket on there and the other one on the back of the spacer. So I'm going to put a bit of RTV on this one, slodge this one on the block there so that can stay on there for good, and then I may leave this one un-RTV'd for the minute, purely for the fact I want to make sure this fuel pump carries on working all right. Obviously if I've got to take it back off again, then I can fairly easily. So that is what I'm going to do. I'm going to get this all bolted on, fairly sort of straightforward job really, and then we'll carry on. There we go, that is the new core plugs in, the one in the block here and the one in the head. They are obviously got a bit of seal around them as well, so that should stop anything from leaking. So now I'm going to turn the engine back round and we are going to get the water pump on. It's looking more and more complete by the second. I'm loving it. Rightio, I've had a bit of a setback on the water pump. I'll explain that in the next bit of the video, but needless to say it's not on there at the moment. So I've carried on and I've got the manifold painted. I've also got the 2 studs put in there to wind that obviously the exhaust onto when it goes on the car, or van I should say, and I've also cleaned up the inlet manifold and I've got all that bolted on as well. I've given the distributor a little bit of a clean up, just sort of the best I can. It's not supposed to be painted or anything, it's just metal, so just give that a wire brush over in a drill. I may paint this little vacuum advanced thing, not sure yet, but that's looking a lot tidier than it was. I need to sort the inside of it out, it's a bit crummy inside, and I've got to sort out the carburetor. As you can see there, it's pretty manky as well, so I might take it off this little upstand that it sits on so I can clean that separately. That can then get bolted onto the top here, and then I can sort out the carburetor and give that a good old clean up. It did run on it before, no problem. I haven't got a rebuild kit at the moment, they're about 70 quid, so I haven't bought one of those at the moment because can't afford it basically. But yeah, so I'm going to give it a good old clean up, make sure it's all sort of not got any gunk in it or anything like that, and hopefully it should still run all right as far as a test run at least, and then that will prove the engine's okay so we can get it put in the van, and then obviously we can do all the little fiddly bits of tuning carbs and whatever else after. So it is going fairly okay. Now I might as well tell you about the water pump while we're here. I got a new water pump for it, as you can see, and the pulley on the front didn't sit in line with the pulley on the crank, and we found this on Dan's van as well for some reason. So I put it in the press to push the front pulley back a little bit, and unfortunately, although I had this bit supported, I didn't actually have the centre bit supported. I didn't realise it was recessed, so it pushed the impeller back. I thought, okay, didn't damage anything, it just pushed it back a little bit. So I stopped obviously pushing, I've got a puller on it and did that, which is unfortunate. So I've knackered the impeller on the new pulley, and yeah, you could just put it in there, but when I spun it, it felt very imbalanced, so I didn't want to put that in there, and obviously they have the engine shaking to bits. So I've ordered another new pump. Unfortunately I've had to buy another new pump because the old pump, where's the other impeller? There it is. I took the impeller off the old pump thinking, okay, I'll just use that. It's a different size, it's too loose. So lesson learned. So it did. After I took this off, it wasn't the press that was the problem, it was the puller. So if I'd have supported this in the very middle rather than just relying on the impeller to push that front pulley forward or back slightly, it would have been fine. So when I get the new one, I'm obviously going to check the alignment again, and if I push the new pulley back slightly, I'm going to make sure that that centre bit, which I didn't realise was recessed at the time, is supported just in the centre there, so it's pushing directly onto this shaft, which means that bit can't move and only the pulley can move. So it's one of those things, learn by your mistakes or learn by my mistakes. Bit of a cock up on my part, but is what it is. Cost me however much for another pump, but hey ho. So that's coming tomorrow, so we should be still on track hopefully to get this running at some point in the very near future. So I'm going to carry on sort of cleaning bits up and painting bits and whatever else. This side there's not a lot really happening over here at the moment. I've got to put the distributor in, I've got to get the timing right to do that, so I need to have a chat with my old mate Dan about that, because I'm not 100% sure how to do that, which way around it's got a face. So yeah, it is coming along slowly but surely. Let's carry on. Rightio, it is the next day. As you can see, I've got another new water pump. I've also got a drip tray for the carburetor as well. Now I just wanted to show you, I haven't touched this yet, I've just literally put it on the block, and I'll show you what I mean by the alignment. You can see if you look down the middle of those two grooves that the water pump pulley is off by quite a bit. It would work, but I would like to get it better, so I'm going to do what I did again, but I'm going to make sure this time that I support that recessed bit in the middle there, so we can only push the front pulley, because obviously before it had the option to push the front or the back, whichever one moved first. So that is what I'm going to do. I'm going to get that in the press, just give it a little bit of a push on. It's got obviously a bit of space there inside there, you probably can't see it very well, but there is a bit of space to obviously allow for a bit of movement on going backwards and forwards. So we'll do that and I'll come back to you in a second. Rightio, after a little go on the press, as you can see there now, I've got it right this time, and they line up absolutely lovely, so that is really good. I've put a belt on there very briefly just to make sure they line up, and that is all good. So now we can take this back off again, get that surface with a bit of RTV on it, get the new gasket on, which I've got somewhere down there, and we can get that sealed on. Top banana, let's carry on. Right, next job I'm doing is the valve clearances or tappets. Now I've done these first three just to sort of get me eye in. I'm on this number 4 now, and I've got number 5, which I think the book says, all the way down open, and that will allow me to adjust number 4. Now you can see the play in that, and we can see that in the camera. It's quite excessive, because obviously I don't think this rocker shaft came off this engine originally. It should be 0.06 thou, which is what I've got here. just making sure it's actually the right one, which is also 1.524 millimeters. So it's not a lot at all. Basically, you want to be able to drag that through between the tappet and the top of the valve with a little bit of drag. So you've got a lock nut on the top there, which you have to obviously undo like that, and then that allows you to twiddle the screw in the middle, which is the adjuster, to obviously adjust that play out of it. Now this would have been horrendously noisy, this engine, if I hadn't have done this, because it was really sort of out of spec, you know. So look, if I do that now, got a light bit of drag in there, it's probably about right. Don't want too much obviously, because otherwise it'll make a hell of a racket. Hold your screw steady, do up the lock nut, and that is it. And you just have to go through the sequence of valves with whichever one open. Yeah, should be okay. Yeah, I'm going across them all like that. So now I'll rotate it so that number 4 is all the way down, and then I can adjust number 5, I think. Yeah. So if we go round 1, or I'll probably see 5. 5's just come up there now. Getting 4 to go all the way down, like that, about there, and then that will give us the play in this one to then adjust. So that is what I'm doing. I'm going to do that on all of them, well, the other 4 I should say. I've done first 4 now, so I'll get the other 4 done and then we'll carry on. Right, another update for you. The carb is now on. I've just bolted that on for now along with the new drip tray. The rocker cover is just resting on it at the moment. Obviously I need to paint that, but I've actually run out of the grey paint. I want to do it the same grey as the manifold and these plates. So that is in the post. That'll be here soon hopefully. I've also got the distributor in, plug leads and cap on. I think I've got them orientated right. Only time will tell on that side of things. So we are getting pretty close to do a test fire on it. I'm going to try and fire it up just obviously as it is for now, without any coolant or anything, just to see if it runs. Obviously we'll have oil in it. I've got to put that in before I do anything else, and I've also got to put the plate on the back of the engine there, the one I painted grey, along with the flywheel and starter motor, so we've got something to turn it over with. So yeah, that is where we're at the moment. So we could possibly be going for a start in a minute, and I'm quite scared. So I'll come back to you in a minute. Right, as you can see, I've actually got the flywheel back off again now. I've been having a few issues with this starter. The starter spins no problem at all on the bench in the vise, but when it tries to turn the engine over, it's just got no guts in it. So I'm going to just clean up a couple of areas on this plate where I've obviously painted it, to make sure that this is getting a good connection as far as an earth to the block. And then I'm also going to clean up the areas around the bolts on the starter motor there as well, same for the same reason, to get a better earth. So I'm thinking it might not be getting a great earth, so I'm going to do that, get the flywheel back on, and then obviously go from there and see if it makes any difference. It may be that the starter's no good, but we'll see. Let's get these little areas cleaned up. I'm just going to use a little belt sander on it, and then probably put a little bit of grease over the top just so that it doesn't rust, and see how we get on. I'll come back to you in a second. Right, I've reinstalled the flywheel and the starter. Now I've actually got this hooked up to a battery charger which has got a jump pack in it, mains one. I'll show you what happens when I switch it on. It'll only run for a few seconds because then the charger kicks out, but you can see how slow it turns over. So I think that starter motor is drawing far too much power and not giving out anything at the other end. Because that should whiz over no problem at all with a charger like that attached to it. I've tried it on a normal battery with jump leads and it won't even move. So it just shows you obviously something's not quite right there. So may have to strip that down, have a look inside it and see what's going on. Let me just pick the camera up and I'll show you. I've got another starter motor here. I'm not 100% sure what this one's off, but the holes are a slightly different distance apart than what this one is. So obviously it won't just bolt straight on, but it may be that I can swap over the end plates and see what this one does. I guess I don't really, never really sort of delved into that side of things. Either that or I'm just gonna have to bite the bullet and buy a new starter motor. Not 100% sure yet. So yeah, that's where we're at the moment. At least the engine's actually turned over. It's got oil in it, by the way, as well, so I'm not turning it over without any oil in it. It has got oil in it. Also, another thing to notice, I've got a few different flywheels here. The one that's on there now is quite thin, and the one that I did have on there when I originally put a flywheel on the engine, which I can't actually see at the moment, there it is over here, is quite thick. Now, I wondered why this was, because a thicker one to me was a lot better condition and a lot better quality. Problem is, you can see the centre bushing there is fairly small, and the bushing on that one is quite a bit bigger. That is because this one is from a 750 gearbox, which has got no synchro on first, and that one is from an 850 gearbox, which has got synchro on first. So that is why they are different. Why the 750 gearbox had a heavier flywheel, I don't know. You can also see I've got another starter flywheel here, which is also off an 850, but this one uses the pre-engaged type starter, and you can see the teeth are different. The teeth on that one have got like a beveled edge, and the teeth on this one are totally square cut. So that's another difference that you obviously need to look out for if you're buying a flywheel for your car or for your van. Make sure you get the right one. So yeah, I have got the right one. Unfortunately, the bushing in this one's a bit knackered, so I'm gonna have to change that, but that's not too much of an issue. So yeah, back to the starter. I'm not really sure what I'm going to do yet. We're on a non-starter at the moment. I mean, I haven't got any ignition or anything hooked up to this at the moment. I just wanted to make sure it's spun over okay. It turns over freely by hand. Which you can see I can turn it over by hand, no problem at all. Obviously it's got compression now because I've got spark plugs in it, but I don't think it's anything to do with the engine being too tight. I think it's just the fact that starter's not got enough go in it. So yeah, that is where we're at the moment. Right, I've just taken the outer casing off of this starter motor, which is just held on with these two long screws that go right through the body. And as you can see inside, this is not looking good at all. You can see how worn that is on there, and it's like that majority of the way around there, so that's not going to be helping anything. I don't know why it's like that. It should be totally smooth like this end, and there is quite a bit of sort of corrosion up that end of the magnets in there as well, so whether that's causing it, I don't know. So yeah, this one's not looking good at the moment, and this looks quite worn. The armature as well looks, it's got quite a groove in it. It's not straight. This end plate is now floating, so if I can get this off the end somehow, I've got to work out how that comes off. I'm going to take this one apart, and I may be able to swap them around and use the end plate off that one on this one. That's what I'm hoping anyway. It does look like this one comes apart slightly differently, so I'll have to have a little look at this one as well and see what we've got to do, because it looks like the screws on this one are at this end rather than at the back end. So yeah, that's a bit slightly different configuration for whatever reason. So they actually screw into the back there rather than, yeah, I don't know whether that's going to work. Don't think that's going to work. Okay, well, I'll have another little look and see what we can do and go from there. Right then, it looks like we're going to have to end the video there, unfortunately. I was really hoping I was going to get the engine running in this episode, but the starter motor, wherever it's gone, has put play to that, and the other one I don't think is going to be compatible to swap the ends over, as I said, because the bolts are around the opposite way. So one of those things, unfortunately, is what it is. So it looks like I'm going to be ordering a new starter motor. There we go. So at least the engine is virtually complete now. Hopefully in the next episode we can get that starter on there, get a fuel and ignition system rigged up, and hopefully, fingers crossed, run it for the first time. So that will be absolutely superb. If you do like what you see, maybe consider hitting that subscribe button down there, and also ring the little notification bell. It will tell you every time I upload a video. I have got Instagram, MEC_TEC1985, and I have got Facebook, MEC-TEC, for little sneak peeks during the week of what I'm up to. And all that is left for me to say is, if you want to join me soon for more automotive adventures, I'll see you again next time. Cheers guys.